Welcome to the Patriot Ledger editorial board, Mr. Koch. You have been here before. We're on the record. Patrick will be reporting out. We're going to try to video as much of this as the camera will allow, which I think is almost the whole hour now, isn't it, Dylan?
Hopefully, yeah.
Yeah. Your choice. Set us up with an introductory remark, or we can jump into questions, however you would like to start.
Well, as I always say, I consider it a tremendous honor and privilege to serve as the mayor of this great city. And I think we've had a very productive 8 years coming out of a very difficult recession, stabilizing the city's finances and moving the city forward in so many ways. So with that, we can jump right into questions.
Okay. Very productive 8 years seems to be the contention point of this election and the opponent. Would you like to sort of speak to the high points of what you think has been your success during your tenure as mayor?
Well, I think with leadership comes the ability to work with others, work with agencies, work with colleagues in government, all levels of government, and I think we've been very successful in doing that, which has led to a lot of successful projects, whether we talk about infrastructure across the board, which in many cases were long ignored for decades, whether it's part of our 53 municipal buildings, or whether it's 100 miles of pipes on the ground, or the 8 miles of seawalls, or roads. These things have not been addressed in many, many years in a real true plan. One of the first early on challenges we had, I'm sure you remember the floods of 2010, where some of those neighborhoods were just inundated, and it happened, if you could go back over the last 30 years, it probably happened 3 or 4 times, equal proportion. So the question was raised, what do we do? Who do we hold responsible? And I remember that very contentious public meeting in West Quincy, and I said, hold me responsible, hold me accountable. And in doing that, we moved forward with a plan that was presented to City Council, which addressed some of those long-plagued neighborhood issues that had not been addressed in decades. Now, we're not finished, but we made great strides. So that's West Quincy, relining and fixing of Furnace Brook, the tide gates for Blacks Creek, which directly relate to West Quincy, even though they're down on the Quincy Bay side. The seawall work, the pump station, $5 million grant we got announced by Congressman Lynch this past summer for a pump station on Miller Street, Furnace Avenue, in that area. And that's that piece. And then tackling our city buildings. We built Quincy High School. We get 80% reimbursement, the highest attainable for Central. We're well on our way for Sterling. This summer we did 5 school buildings, all new doors, windows, getting 70% reimbursement on those projects. The transportation projects, North Quincy High School area there, East and West Quantum Streets, 75% cost paid for by the state and federal government. East and West Howard Streets at Quincy Avenue, complete new intersection, 100% paid for by the state and federal government. A $1.2 million grant as we speak for the redesign of C Street from Palmer Street all the way to Southern Artery. MassDOT is doing as we speak. So whether it's buildings, underground stuff, seawalls, transportation, we've been at the table working with our colleagues at all levels of government and bringing home to the city tens of millions of dollars in investment in our infrastructure. I'm proud of that record.
What remains to be done in infrastructure?
Well, we're an old city. So we have old sewer pipes, we have old water mains, and certainly the private utilities by National Grid are equally as old. So we've got to continue to work it neighborhood by neighborhood, street by street. We've been far more, this administration, I think, far more thorough when doing streets over. We don't get as many done because the old days you'd paint streets black with half an inch of blacktop over them. We've gotten away from that philosophy, and we're doing water mains, gas mains, all at the same time, and then rebuilding the street. Now, politically, it's more challenging because the street is a little messy, a little longer, and you don't get as many streets repaved in a year as you would if you just did half-inch overlay like it used to be done. So there's still much work that needs to be done. We've got about 250 miles of roadway, well over 300 miles of sidewalk, hundreds of miles obviously of drain, of water, of sewer, 43 tide gates, and as I said, almost 8 miles of seawall. So we've made great progress, but more work needs to be done.
You have to, well, let's focus on the last term for a while, maybe, rather than the full 8, although fair enough. What would you say is, from your perspective, your most significant achievement as mayor throughout the 8 years or in the last 2 years or both?
Oh boy.
If you could pick one thing that you left on the city.
Well, I guess what's more important than the bricks and mortar is, I think we've made a difference in the opioid issue. I think that has been a very difficult issue to tackle. You know, when I took office, and first of all, when I ran in 2007, and began to realize the depth of that issue. You know, when I first decided to run for mayor, never did I expect the first thing I'd be doing out of the box would be putting together a drug task force to deal with the opioid issue. And you know, being in government for 20 years prior to being mayor, there were certainly a lot of other thoughts I had in mind, whether it was infrastructure projects or the downtown, or improvements to our schools or parks. I get back to that one. The number of families that have been touched by that issue is remarkable to me. The number of families that have been devastated by the issue is extremely unfortunate, and I felt that we need to do more about it. Just as an addict has to admit there's an issue, I felt as a community we had to admit there's an issue so that we could come together as a community to try to make a difference. And I think we've done that, and we're far from being done, and it's a very frustrating issue because there's no easy solutions, but we brought everyone together at the table. Everyone's kind of doing their own thing. But we brought everyone together in unison, and people working hard, coming up with new ideas, and whether we talk about drug drop-off days or Narcan or the additional programs in our schools, the additional health intervention in our schools, you know, the addition of the Phoenix House in Quincy. You know, we talked about a lot about enforcement. We tripled the size. That by this time we've now tripled the size of the drug. You know, I used to say we doubled it. You know, we're doing all those educational pieces, so enforcement education, and this the third piece that we really had a problem with was the treatment part of it. There weren't enough beds around. The state, never mind Quincy, but so when there was an opportunity to start to address that for Quincy on Old Colony Ave, we took it. You know, it was not an easy thing to do politically, but it was the right thing to do, and so that to me is the most challenging issue of our time beyond the bricks and mortar, and we've just got to continue to be vigilant, keep working on it.
When you say you brought everybody together, have you thought about a more regional approach, or have you done anything toward going now beyond the city and working with other?
We have been doing that. That's been happening. For example, in the enforcement side, one of the first things we did was put our police department back connected with the DEA. We have an office that's directly tied in with the regional task force approach. Obviously, that's one aspect of it, the enforcement, trying to dry up some of the supply. But we talk on a regular basis to other communities. Marty Welsh, and when the Metro mayors get together, we talk about this issue and what people are doing, what's working in different communities. There's 13 of us in that group. You know, last week we had that opiate congressional briefing that we've been working on for months, because I did state back at my city address in the winter that we need to have a more regional approach, that we've got to see you know, what other entities are doing or what other government agencies are doing, and kind of bring that together. And I thought that was helpful last week. In fact, I heard from some of the parents, they weren't aware of all that was happening at the various levels to try to address this issue. But we have a long way to go. It's just, We go to too many wakes of young people in our community, and it's not unique to Quincy by any means, and that's why we're going to continue to work on a more regional basis on it.
Well, let's talk dollars and cents, if you wouldn't mind, for a moment. All of these projects, some of them reimbursed at varying percentages, some of them 100%. But how have you increased the city's indebtedness through all of these projects? And do you see that as an issue that's going to impact taxation going forward?
I think that's a perception issue. When you look at the real number, our debt ratio is one of the lowest of any city in the Commonwealth. And that's the other perception challenge that.
And what's the debt, is the debt ratio dollars to population or?
Percentage to budget.
Percentage to budget.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
And we're well under 6%, well under 6%. Many cities our size are at 8, 10, some of them even at 12%. So there's plenty of room for us as far as our debt goes. In fact, our bond rating was increased over a year ago, which is a good sign. If the bond rating is concerned about our debt, our bond rating would not have been increased. And that goes back to trying to get as much done as we possibly can. We got an excellent bond rating. But we're at a time where borrowing money is very cheap to start with. So it's a great opportunity to deal with some of these major infrastructure issues. And there's been many economists that have commented on that, whether in the public or the private side of things, to invest in capital. Now's the time to do it, because you'll never get money borrowed at a cheaper rate than what we have right now.
So when we're talking about the downtown project, I'm wondering why you started with Adams Green. It's a huge project. What budget last I read was about $25 million, and that's dependent on getting a loan from the state, which is then dependent on you proving that there are new tax revenues to pay it back. What is the rationale for starting there?
Well, I'm a little confused, because I don't think we started there. We built the Hannah Parkway. We moved the Town Brook.
Right.
And now we're working on the Adams Green. So that's a piece of the puzzle, the Adams Green. And the Adams Green piece is very, very, as was the Hannah Parkway, very important to investors, very important to developers, very important to the business community, but as equally important to the residents of the city. One of the cries we heard throughout the years at public hearings was more green space in the downtown. And those that have been involved in the development portion of it, the investors have indicated that there's a strong interest in having a beautiful open space area, and certainly connecting to the front door, which is the Quincy Center Station, made a lot of sense. Now that's on the business aspect of it. There's the other side, which is equally important, and that is our historic preservation efforts, our heritage as a city, and what has become of that area, particularly the church becoming a traffic rotary, essentially, over the last several decades, which I think is extremely unfortunate. And I think that this project will address a number of things, including putting our history where it ought to be, with a beautiful, beautiful setting, giving the dignity to that church and what it holds. And I'm not talking about the religious part of that church, but the crypts of that church, which holds the presidents and their wives. Across the street, our old burial ground, 1640, with some incredible historical figures in that location. Our 1844 old town hall, which we're repairing as we speak. All of that works beautifully in with what will be the, whatever we call it in the end, Adams Green, Hancock Adams Green. I think both names will probably end up in it. So it's a very important public project as part of the investment in the downtown, and I think it's a terrific project. And I think in the end, people will be very, very proud and pleased with the finished product. Having said that, we've been chipping away at it, and this last grant we got for $4.2 million is a very important piece, because it allows us to deal with the infrastructure that I've been talking about citywide, but more specifically in that location. And I've said it publicly. We have a Verizon duck bank, a Marbell duck bank, a wooden duck bank that goes through there with 27,000 phone lines in it. And that speaks to the age of our infrastructure as a city. So this will allow us to take care of a lot of the infrastructure to get ready to prepare for the construction